What's happening, y'all? Welcome inside the Fantasy Stock Exchange. Bush coming at you solo today to break down Chris Olave, wide receiver from the Ohio State Buckeyes. We're taking a break from free agency right now to mix in some rookie talk. If you're interested in our thoughts on some of the free agency signings, leave a comment down below. Or go check out the live stream that we did yesterday. If we get a lot more signings today, we'll definitely do another live stream either today or tomorrow whenever we get, a good number of signings to talk about. So stay tuned for that. If this is the first episode of Tale of the Tape that you're watching, we have an entire playlist, an entire series of Tale of the Tape where I covered Malik Willis, Breece Hall, Drake London, Treylon Burks, all the biggest prospects in the 2022 NFL draft, as well as their player cards over on Patreon. Dynasty Rankings Manifesto, Dynasty Decisions Priority, written player cards, like I mentioned, as well as drawings for listener leagues are available on our Patreon if you guys are interested in supporting us over there. The link is in the description for that. Like I said, you will get access to all of our Dynasty rankings, from our quarterback rankings, running back, wide receiver, tight end. You'll get our bucketed rankings by age, as you'll see on the screen right now. You'll also get our top 36 rookie Superflex and one quarterback rankings, as well as our top 100 overall startup rankings for Superflex and one quarterback as well. So if that interests you, link is in the description. Like, comment, subscribe if you enjoy this video. Now let's hit the intro. Okay, Chris Olave, wide receiver from the Ohio State Buckeyes. This is his tale of the tape. Age 21.7 years old, 6 foot tall, 187 pounds. Basic information. This is where I cover, his background information, his high school stuff. 3-star recruit out of San Marcos, California, number 68 wide receiver in the 2018 recruiting class. So we're not talking about a high-level 5-star recruit type of guy. Modest production throughout his college career. He went 49 for 849 and 12 touchdowns as a true sophomore in 2019, which was his breakout year, basically 19.2 breakout age for Chris Olave. He had an 18.5% target share that season, and he led Ohio State in receiving in 2019, playing alongside KJ Hill, who's eventually went off to the NFL, J.K. Dobbins, who's the running back for the Baltimore Ravens, and then freshman wide receiver Garrett Wilson at the time. He came out swinging as a true junior in a COVID-shortened 2020 season for the Big Ten. He posted a career-high 26.2% target share, going 50 for 727 in only 8 games played with 7 touchdowns. Everyone thought Olave would declare last season. I figured he would come out. He would be a second round type wide receiver. And then he'd be in the NFL in 2021, but he actually did go back for his senior year. His numbers regressed a little bit, and that was due in large part to a talented sophomore, Jackson Smith and Jigba, and Garrett Wilson, his teammate, who's out, also coming in for this draft, who also has his own tale of the tape if you want to check that out. Both producing and outproducing Chris Olave this season. Chris Olave only had a 20.4% target share this season, 936 yards, but he did score 13 touchdowns playing alongside Garrett Wilson and Jackson Smith and Jigba, as I mentioned. So that's the background information on Chris Olave. Now let's get into these 6 fundamental traits for the wide receiver position. If you're new around here, we determine these 6 fundamental traits because they best show and they're easy to identify the basics of what playing the wide receiver position is, and also what matters for fantasy football. And they're easy to evaluate. Anybody can watch a wide receiver prospect and evaluate these film metrics basically and cross-reference them with actual metrics to make sure what you're seeing on film is in fact matching what is in the numbers as well. So the first thing that we're looking for in wide receivers is their ability to separate, run routes, and get open. And Olave, not quite to the level of Garrett Wilson, because I think Garrett Wilson is the best route runner in this class. He is a great route runner in his own right. And particularly against zone coverage, you guys are going to see a number of clips of him winning against zone, finding soft spots and getting open that way, which is an underrated part of being a wide receiver. He can win against man coverage and against press coverage, as you'll see in a number of these clips here, but you'll see him break off a bunch of digs and a bunch of, shallow crossers within zone coverage. And that's very valuable in the NFL because NFL defenses play zone coverage for the most part. There's only a handful of teams that play heavy man coverage type of, schemes. And I think it's a little overrated when we talk about these NFL prospects and these wide receiver prospects, when we say, oh, well, can he win against press man coverage and all this stuff? Olave can do it, but he is much better against zone coverage, which is what he's going to see more of in the NFL anyway. So that is a good sign. The only problem that I see with his separation ability is the metrics that kind of coincide with separation ability not being exceptional, right? 2.29 yards per route run ranks, below average in the class, 79.9 PFF receiving grade this season. also ranks below average in the class. He also didn't have, a massive target share this season, which makes a lot of sense. But this was a guy who didn't run a ton of intermediate routes. He either ran short or he ran, way downfield, which is a really weird combination for a guy who was deployed that way. But that's just how he was used. They had Jackson Smith and Jigba to run the intermediate stuff. They had Garrett Wilson to run the short and intermediate stuff. And then they didn't really have a deep threat. So they either used Chris Olave on short stuff or they used him downfield. And that is a really weird way to deploy a wide receiver, but it is good knowing that Olave can affect all three levels of the field. The only question mark I have about his ability to separate is if he can do it consistently in the intermediate areas of the field on the, the crossers and the posts and stuff like that. Number two is hands, right? And how are the wide receivers' hands doesn't mean, does he drop the ball a lot? It means, can he make simple contested catches? Can he make, catches outside of his frame? Can he make catches under heavy contact? Are his hands an asset to his game? And this is another great attribute of Chris Olave. Like every wide receiver, he's going to have some concentration drops. And again, I don't really care about concentration drops. They're not sticky in the NFL. Most of the best wide receivers in fantasy last year led the league in drops because they got a lot of targets. And it's really nothing to be concerned with. But with Chris Olave, he was able to display his hands as an asset through heavy contact, as you'll see in this clip right here, and others that I'm about to show. In this one, he only gets 1 foot down, which is actually a catch in college because you don't need both feet. But you can just see how strong his hands are in contested situations like this. And the impressive thing about Chris Olave's ability in contested situations against heavy contact is that he had the third highest contested catch rate in this entire class, 62.5%, ranks third in the class behind George Pickens and Drake London. And George Pickens and Drake London are both above the height of 6'3". So they're much bigger receivers than what Chris Olave is. And Olave being 6 foot, 187 pounds, the fact that he is able to win contested catches with that amount of, consistency like those big wide receivers is definitely encouraging to see. He's a really sure-handed wide receiver. This is definitely a box that he checks. Number 3 is yards after catchability. How well does he create with the ball in his hands is what we're looking for fantasy. This would be what would be considered my biggest knock on Chris Olave. Now, it's not that he stinks after the catch and that he can't do anything. He's just not overly dynamic. And that's weird to say considering he's a good athlete and he ran fast, but he is more of a straight line type of athlete than a horizontal, elusive type of athlete. So he could develop this part of his game. He's a good enough athlete to be able to do that, but there's not many instances on tape where you'll see Olave break tackles or make people miss or, do anything exceptional after the catch with the ball in his hands. For the most part, his athleticism shows up within the route. Once he catches the ball, he's, sometimes able to get upfield a little bit, but he's not a guy that's going to, catch a slant and take it to the house and make 3 people miss on the way. Only 276 of his 936 receiving yards this year came after the catch. And that ranks 5th lowest in the class as a percentage, and he only avoided 2 tackles after the catch this entire season on all of his receptions, or on a 3.08% of his total receptions. And for reference, his teammate Garrett Wilson was over 25%. So we're talking about 2 guys that are completely different after the catch. Garrett Wilson is a lot more dynamic after the catch. It's probably the biggest distinction between Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave is just how much better Garrett Wilson is with the ball in his hands. It's not that Chris Olave can't do it. It's that he's not as good at it as Garrett Wilson or Jackson Smith and Jigba from what I saw of the talented sophomore as well. So number 4 is usage. How can they win? Where can they win on the field? Are they only going to win in the slot? Are they only going to win on design touches? Are they going to win downfield? Are they going to win all 3 levels, right? Typically, we want wide receivers to be 3-level threats like Jamar Chase, like some of the other receivers, Justin Jefferson, who we've seen come out in recent years that have been successful. And Chris Olave can win at all 3 levels of the field. That is definitely a hard box to check for college wide receivers, but Chris Olave checks it. And he can win versus zone, like I mentioned. He can win versus man. He can win versus press. He ran over 80% of his routes from the outside alignment. He wasn't a slot receiver, despite being a little bit undersized, but he can win from the slot as well. If he's asked to be a slot receiver at the next level, he averaged 3.69 yards per route run from the slot, and 6 of his 13 touchdowns in 2021 came from the slot, despite only 27 of his 101 targets being from the slot. So he was productive when he was asked to play in the slot, but he was only in there 18.5% of his routes in 2021. He has 4.3 speed, so he can win downfield. You can see a number of clips of him, beating defenders deep and getting behind the defense. He has great downfield ball tracking and great contested catchability downfield, like I said already. And he saw the 7th highest percentage of his targets coming 20 plus yards downfield with 24 deep targets in 2021 and 23.8% of his 101 targets coming downfield, like I mentioned. So this is a complete package from a usage standpoint. He can do anything that an NFL team asks of him as far as his alignment is concerned. If a team wants to use him as a slot receiver, he can do it. If they want to use him as an X receiver, he can do it. If they want to use him as a flanker Z receiver, which is what I think his best role was probably going to be at the next level, he can do that as well. So number 5 is athleticism, right? And athleticism for wide receivers doesn't necessarily correlate directly to fantasy production, but we do like our wide receivers to be better athletes if they can be and meet certain basic athletic thresholds. Now, this is the first tail of the tape that I'm doing after the combine. So we actually have real athleticism numbers for these players and not just me speculating like I did in the other videos. I am curious to see how agile he is because like I said, in the yards after catch portion, he isn't overly elusive in space. He's not a guy that is dynamic in space. Nonetheless, though, we're talking about a guy that is well above average in terms of his relative athletic score per MathBomb at MathBomb on Twitter. And he has great speed. So he checks the athleticism box pretty easily for me. Number 6 is his analytics profile. Now, this is where the paper nerds get out their pitchforks and they poke holes all over everybody's analytics profile. But let's dive into Chris Olave's for a second because Chris Olave's profile isn't perfect. Definitely has some holes. Number 1, he never received an elite share of his offense. And a 26% target share in 2020 is a good number. But in 2019 and 2021, he was barely over 20%. From a college dominator standpoint, from a target share standpoint, no, he didn't dominate his offense, but he did play for Ohio State. And he posted better numbers and better target share numbers than a guy like Terry McLaurin posted, than a guy like, Jalen Waddle posted for the Alabama Crimson Tide last year. So do I think Garrett Wilson and Jackson Smith-Njigba are better prospects than Chris Olave? Probably. And Olave is great as well. It's nothing to take away from Olave. I just think Garrett Wilson is a first-round talent wide receiver, and I think Jackson Smith-Njigba next year will be a first-round talent wide receiver. And Chris Olave, kind of just a victim of circumstance, being at a very, very good, high-powered offensive school, is not a guy that's going to get a whole lot of attention in the analytics department as a result of that. Now, number 2, the second biggest knock that people are going to have on Chris Olave is the fact that he's not an early declare for the draft, which is an analytical sticking point for some people's models and stuff, where was he an early declare or was he not? The problem with that is when you go to a big school, typically receivers are going to come back for their senior years more often than not because they want a chance to compete for a national championship. They want to win with their college teammates. And that doesn't happen at TCU. So if he was a senior at TCU or some other school where they have no chance of winning the Natty, then I'm, more likely to hold that against him. But guys like Travis Etienne last year came back for his senior year. Devontae Smith came back for his senior year at Alabama. Najee Harris came back for his senior year at Alabama. When you go to a huge school like that and you have a chance to win a national championship, I'm more likely to forgive these guys for coming back for their senior season. So he has good size, 19.2 breakout age, which is in the 85th percentile. So Chris Olave checks the boxes for the most part from an analytical perspective, but he is not a guy that is going to have an elite profile like Drake London or David Bell or somebody like that. So solid profile for Chris Olave, but nothing elite, like I said. Now, the subjective traits, if you guys are new around here, that means anything that can't be quantified. So you're going to see a lot of people on Twitter talk about, people's nuance and their, route running nuance and smarts and toughness and stuff that me as the film watcher can see, but I can't necessarily guarantee that player has that trait. So I weight these less than the 6 fundamental traits that I've talked about already. But when we talk about his subjective traits, plays smart as hell, right? He's a very smart player, very nuanced player as a senior. And you kind of expect that out of Chris Olave, that he's, had all this college experience at a big school. You expect him to be a little bit more, brought along from a football IQ standpoint. So that is definitely encouraging to see. And typically we see players that are smart and, savvy in college translate quickly to the NFL. So this could be a guy that has a good rookie season, rises in dynasty value as a result. Now, the one constant I've seen from film bros like Daniel Jeremiah and Mel Kiper and stuff is that they seem to think that Chris Olave needs to get stronger. They need to see his play strength increase. And that might be an issue for him in the NFL. Now, I noticed it as well to some degree that he's not the most physical player in the world. I don't really care how strong a wide receiver like Chris Olave is, though, at the next level, to be honest, because the way that he wins with, route running and smarts and good hands and stuff, he doesn't need to be a freaky strong type of guy. He's not Treylon Burks. If Treylon Burks was like weak at the combine or something like that, or teams thought he was like lacking play strength, that'd be a bigger problem. But Chris Olave doesn't need strength to win. We saw Devontae Smith go in the top 10 last year, who weighed like 165 pounds. So I'm not really all that concerned about play strength with Chris Olave, but it is a concern that a lot of people that I think have, know what they're talking about on film have with Chris Olave. So let's get into the final grades with Chris Olave. Based on a scale of 1100, which is the scale I grade on, he scored as an 891.25 out of 1100. And that equates to an early second round talent, is where basically Chris Olave grades for me. That puts him in a tier with guys like Jameson Williams, with guys like George Pickens, with Christian Watson, with David Bell, etc. at the, tail end of the first round, early second round of rookie drafts in Superflex leagues. But he is ranked the highest currently of those guys for me right now. For the time being, I have him above Jameson Williams. I have him above David Bell, who I've already graded. And then George Pickens and Christian Watson, who I haven't graded yet. He's probably going to be above those guys too, just based on what I know about those players. His biggest strengths, as I mentioned, being his athleticism and speed, his separation ability, his hands, and the ability he has to be a 3-level threat, as well as how smart of a player he is. His biggest weaknesses are the profile, some of the profile, not that he's not an early declare, etc. His yards after catch and how dynamic he is in space, and his play strength and physicality. Among last year's class, Chris Olave would have been my wide receiver 6 last year, behind Jalen Waddle, Elijah Moore, and Rashad Bateman, who were my 3, 4, and 5 behind Chasen Smith. And he would have been a fair amount higher than my actual wide receiver 6, who was De'Ami Brown, and wide receiver 7, Amon-Ra St. Brown, who were ranked as late second round grades. So last year, I had 5 first round wide receivers, no early second round grades, no mid second round grades, but 2 guys ranked as late second rounders. So Chris Olave would have fit a decent bit ahead of De'Ami Brown and Amon-Ra St. Brown as my late second round grades last year. So that's where he would have kind of stacked up. Like I said, he's already ranked higher than Jameson Williams and David Bell for me in this year's class, but just behind those top 3 wide receivers as my wide receiver 4 as it currently stands right now. So comparable players, I kind of already alluded to them already, but my comp for Chris Olave is actually Devontae Smith. Now, this one was pretty easy for me to make because I have similar strengths for both of those players, right? Hands, route running, smarts, 3-level ability, athleticism. My biggest weaknesses for Devontae Smith last year were the fact that he was small. His play strength wasn't the greatest. He wasn't an early declare. He came back for his senior season, and he also wasn't exceptional after the catch either. Now, the only difference why Smith ended up being a first round graded wide receiver for me and my wide receiver 2 last year versus Chris Olave, who's my wide receiver 4, early second round grade, is because Smith had an elite year of production, right? He came back his senior year and dominated the competition, won the Heisman Trophy, and had a phenomenal season. Chris Olave never really had that season of dominant production, elite target share, a lot of touchdowns, a lot of yards, etc. So that's why he's more so in that early second round grade for me as far as his overall grade, comparably to Devontae Smith, who's my comparison for him. Now, to close this video out, I'll get into his best fits. His best fits, his pro projection basically is to be a number 2 receiver in the NFL. Like I said, the Z receiver behind an established X would be ideal for him. If he could develop his route running in his game a little bit, he could develop into a number 1 wide receiver like Calvin Ridley, like Stephon Diggs. But his scheme fit and his ideal fit, in my opinion, would be to be behind a solidified number 1, like in Green Bay, behind Devontae Adams, like in Tennessee, behind A.J. Brown, or like in Kansas City behind Tyreek Hill. I think those would be the great spots for him. I'm not really sure exactly where he's going to go in the draft. I think he's probably going to go somewhere between 15 and 32. So in the first round, but at the back half of the first round, all those teams could use Chris Olave. The Buffalo Bills also make sense. Tampa Bay Buccaneers also make sense if they want to get another receiver in their receiving cores as well. And he would also fit pretty well with those guys as well. In terms of his fantasy outlook, his upside, he's probably limited to a back-end wide receiver 1 just because he's more so in the Deontay Johnson mold, where he's going to need a lot of elite target volume to be very good in fantasy, but he's not necessarily going to be overly efficient on limited targets like an A.J. Brown would, or a Deebo Samuel would, or a DK Metcalf would, for example. Now, he might be stuck in the range of like a Tyler Lockett for the rest of his career, but that's fine, right? High-end wide receiver 2, low-end wide receiver 1 type that you're getting at the 108, 109, 110, 111 of your rookie drafts in Superflex leagues. And I'm very much okay with taking Chris Olave at the back end of rookie drafts. So if you guys have the 109, the 110 this year, and you're curious, should I go with Chris Olave, Jameson Williams, Christian Watson, which guy should I go with? I personally would go with Chris Olave as it currently stands. Now, their landing spots could change a little bit, but I typically don't overvalue landing spots for wide receivers. So Chris Olave is my wide receiver 4 pre-draft. He will likely stay my wide receiver 4 post-draft because I expect him to get first-round draft capital. So if you guys enjoyed this video, as always, leave a like, comment any of your thoughts down below, subscribe to the channel if you are new. If you're interested in more Dynasty content from us, like I said, Dynasty Rankings Manifesto and more available at patreon.com/fantasy stock exchange. Link is in the description for that. We also have other links in the description. If you guys want our Dynasty Rankings Manifesto, but don't want to sign up on Patreon, you can sign up on Underdog Fantasy using promo code FSE at sign up and first deposit. You'll get 100% match back on whatever you put in. So you will also get access to our Dynasty Rankings Manifesto for free. You won't get any of the other Patreon benefits, but you will get access to our rankings. If that interests you, you can sign up on Underdog using promo code FSE, like I mentioned. So peace out, guys. I'll talk to you soon.